hey, I was watching this video and I thought it was interesting. Uh, I think obviously I don't agree with the guy, but I wanted to talk about the video, so let's listen.
It's just they're all little selfish, weaselly cunts who don't like democracy
He's talking about libertarians, and there's a guy that he's talking about at one of the videos, and they're supporting Bitcoin.
because they can't win the argument. They're selfish, idiotic, Nietzschean attitudes. You know, most people are smart enough to know they like to have regulations about what kind of car you can drive on the road, and they like to have regulations that might stop people from.
So of course his belief is that that libertarians don't believe in any kind of regulation, that they don't believe that the states should have the power to regulate food or to secure, to make sure that people are safe overall. Because libertarians mainly disagree with having the federal government do these functions because it's not in the Constitution. Apparently, he thinks that libertarians absolutely are against, as if libertarians are against all government. That's not the truth. Libertarians are for small government close to the people.
Overfishing, it's making whales extinct, and then making lobsters extinct, and then making
Oh, come
tunas extinct,
on.
and you need some sort of
These are
regulation to
straw man
control that
arguments.
kind of shit. Most people can understand that they don't want polluters to be free to pollute all over the world.
Well, if I am being affected by a polluter and there is no governmental agency, a federal agency to stand in the way between me and that polluter, I can sue that polluter. But because we have the federal government protecting the polluters, now I have no power. I can't do anything about it. They've taken away my power as a human. So what you don't understand is that you have less power, you have less control over your environment, the air, the water, because the federal government gives blank checks to companies to pollute.
So this is just all such crap, and it's kind of disgusting to have the argument. I'll make a little speech. What the hell? Before we start, just a prefacing speech, right? Because these guys are implying like they're for a fair game, like they want to make things like that. That's their goal, is to create like a really good, fair game, and the invisible hand will take care of everything. And we, like I said, a little bit of logic, and that invisible hands aren't going to work when it's you against the empire. You against Attila the Hun. You're going to lose. Okay, he's got a big giant army and the best armor and the best swords and the best weapons and the biggest horses. And if you pick a fight with him, you're going to lose. And we all know that, right? We can all figure that out.
So I'm assuming that he's talking about, the little guy against the big guy in the economy. So, the big guy is making widgets, and I'm a little guy and I'm making widgets, and there's no way that I can compete with him. Is what they're saying. But in reality, most little guys get in the business of making widgets because they see that the big guy is not doing a good job, or he's not cost effective, or for whatever reason he sees a niche mark. He says, I can do that and I can do it better and I can do it cheaper. And that's what the freedom that libertarians are talking about. Give us the power to jump in the swimming pool. The problem is the big companies like GE, for example, they pay no taxes. And I'm sure he, as a libertarian, would disagree with that. But GE has the ear of the president. They can go to him and say, look, there's a little startup company that's trying to come in, and, we want there to be certain uh, regulations that would make it almost impossible for them to get into business. Make it to, well, the big companies, they're already doing these things, whatever it is. Uh, you know, the regulations that are when you're making a zillion widgets, it's real easy to have a guy putting a stamp on it, a testing stamp or whatever. Big companies that are making drugs can afford the costs involved in testing. So they go to Congress and they say, we want everybody to do it. And, Congress is like, well, okay, well, what's in it for me? And of course, they're going to say, all the money you need to get reelected. And we'll be talking about, to our customers and everybody. You'll make out good. What's the little guy got to offer to Congress? So these people who are progressive think that they're doing the little guy some favor. Well, the little guy can't get in business, can't get started, and he's trapped buying outrageously high-priced items because there is no competition. Take drugs, for example. I've got a friend that he was on certain drugs that was costing him upwards to $500 a month. When he lost his insurance and he had to pay it all out of pocket, he found another source, and that source was out of the country, and instead of paying 500, he's paying like $65. Same medicine, but our country has us trapped in this little circle. You have to have the insurance. The insurance has to buy it from these people. So, pay 10 or 20%, the insurance pays the rest. So if it's 500 bucks and the guy's paying 15 or 20% out of pocket, he's paying more than he would if he was paying the whole cost and going directly to the companies or to a Canadian connection. So all regulations has done for our country has made it easier for the big guy to take advantage of the little guy. And he's talking about somehow or another, David and Goliath battle where the little guy is not protected unless big government comes in and defends him. Big government don't give a crap about the little guy, not even a little bit. Big government is there to get reelected, and they're looking for the money. And who's got the money? GE.
So let's not pretend that he's for a fair fight. He just wants the winners to be a class, and he suspects that he'll belong to that class.
Well, the thing is, there already is a class, and they are the winners, and they're already taking everything. And if you look around, you'll see that it's not getting better, it's getting worse under the system that you appreciate. More progression. Take more from the upper class and give to the lower class. What you don't understand is this is just a ruse. It's just to make everything look fuzzy and pretty. But the truth is, it's not happening. Do you see the rich getting poorer? Do you see the poor getting richer? You see what I'm saying? Did you see it ever whenever under progressive or under communism or under socialism? Ever? No, of course not. Because the people that are in power take advantage of it.
And so, I mean, rational people, I think, could say, look, we have a system. We can, life isn't fair. Nature isn't fair. But human civilization can do some of this fairness thing. It can try to even up the game and make.
Well, first of all, when you say rational people, what you're trying to say is people that agree with you are rational and everybody else is not. You know? Come on. Are we having a discussion about what I believe as opposed to what you believe, and maybe I can learn something from your beliefs and maybe you can learn something from my beliefs? Or have you already decided that you're right? Surely I agree that I think I'm right, but I'm open. I'm listening. I don't assume naturally that you're not a rational person just because I disagree with you.
For a good match. We've done it. We've demonstrated our ability to do it. We make nice, fair football games and nice, fair soccer matches.
And what's any of that got to do with the government? What, you're talking about private uh, institutions here. Nothing to do at all with the government. I mean, you want to talk about what's fair, and then you watch GE pay nothing, and then you watch the guy that's trying to raise a family of four pay out the nose, and somehow or another that's fair because that guy paying out the nose is making more than the other guy down the street that doesn't have as much, you know?
Nice, fair boxing matches. We do it all the time. If steroids becomes a problem, then we pass some laws saying, okay, we really don't want our athletes to all get cancer, so
This isn't, these aren't laws that keep them from taking the steroids. It's the individual institutions that come together and say, look, we're competing here. It's not fair. So if you get caught, then we're not going to let you participate. It's not a law. You're not breaking any law. You just can't participate anymore. You're breaking the rules. It's like if you're a racer and you take a shortcut and you win. You know, you don't you don't go to jail for it.
let's not do this idiotic nonsense. And so we do something to correct it. And it's rational, and it's reasonable, and it's sensible to
So here he's talking about our government, and when they find an issue, they fix it. They come up with a rational, reasonable explanation of what we can do to fix it. Well, throughout history, almost every single thing that the government's done to resolve an issue has made it worse. Look at school loans. Before school loans, the average kid could get an after-school job and pay for his schooling. That's unheard of anymore. Now they have to borrow huge amounts of money and then have this debt hang over them, many of them, for the rest of their lives.
do that. That's what something with intelligence should do. And but these people don't think it's achievable. They don't think fairness is worth it, and they don't think it's achievable. One of those two things, anyway. And it's obvious nonsense. They're just
It's not about fairness. Fairness is you're on the playing field, I'm on the playing field, you have all the same advantages. There are no advantages. We're even. That's a level playing field. Now, if you exercise and work your butt until you get stronger than me, then guess what? You've just tilted the field in your favor. But that's based on your work, and that's fine. See, that's what libertarians are for. We believe that if you work extra hard, you should have the advantage. But the progressives believe that if the guy that's working too hard he's just a greedy pig. He just wants to get more so that he can have more. He wants to control people. You know, it takes away all the incentive. That's why communism has never worked anywhere that it's ever been tried.
selfish cunts. And, they think they're going to be they're going to be Attila. And so they're going to do okay. Their people will be okay. And the things they care about will be okay. And,
I want to get to the
so
money
they're willing
thing.
to
Talk
play
about
the
the
cheaters game
Bitcoin.
instead. And a lot of this comes down to, what do you want for an answer to a problem? Do you want a stupid, simple, crude answer, or do you want something a little bit smarter and a little bit more complicated as a solution?
Well, maybe you're the one who's making it more complicated than it has to be. A lot of times we can break down your complicated jargon down to simple terms. The founders did this. That's why the Constitution is a very simple and small document, and that's why the the conservatives, when they make a law, they try to make it simple and straight to the point. But then you've got the progressives, and they make a law that's several hundred pages long. And inside of it are all kinds of weird stuff that you would never assume was in there. And you wouldn't know it because you can't even see what's in it until after they've passed it. You know, what kind of logic is that?
I mean, really, if you have a water problem, do you think that, somebody just shows up and says, build a fire, it'll evaporate the water? Yeah, and it burns your house down.
No, that's not the way it works. Under a libertarian program, I'll tell you how. Under libertarians, we would have companies. We wouldn't set it up. Individuals would set it up. Private people would say, "Hey, there's a need for people to get rid of water when they have a flood in their house." And the guy down the street would say, I can make a company. I've got all these pumps and stuff, and I'm going to get some more, and I'm going to make a company because I see the requirements." And then they would make the company. Voila! Guess what? Problem solved. And then other people would say, look, Joe's making a lot of money doing that. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to compete against him. and now the prices come down. This is all part of a proper market. Where do you see the government coming and draining water? Really? I mean, the only thing the government does is move money around. That's all they really do. Anyhow.
Come on, now you want to be as smart as you can. You don't want to do the simplest thing. You want to do the best thing. And these people just don't want to play that kind of game.
All right,
So
we need to
their
get
answer
along.
is
I
let's
want to
go
get to
back
the
to being.
Bitcoin discussion.
But then, like I said, they're just too stupid. They're just too stupid.
All right.
Stealing old ladies' money or ripping somebody off somewhere so they know how to do it, and they think they have an advantage. And you can see that.
That's just not even close to the truth. It's just not even close. There is no evidence. He's not bringing a single argument to support his statements. Where is the argument that libertarians are stealing little old ladies' money? You know, it's probably because as a libertarian, we don't agree with uh, the government taking people's money and giving it to other people. So immediately they assume that libertarians want to take other people's money. Well, it's not the other person's money if you had to take it from somebody else. See what I'm saying? Like if Joe down the street has money and Mary Lou on the other end of the street needs the money, the government is the facilitator. So the government takes $1,000 from Joe and gives 500 to Mary Lou and then spends the rest on administrative costs. And so that somehow is helping Mary Lou and society as a whole because, Joe has got way too much and he's wasting it, just leaving it sitting around in a bank or something. Might as well be spent. And Mary Lou's so poor, she'll spend every penny. So that'll help the economy. This is their mentality. So Joe works harder. He's like, man, I got to work harder. They're taking so much of my money. So he works harder. Well, they're like, hey, wait a minute, Joe, you're making too much money. Let's bump up his rate. You know, he's like, I got to work harder even yet because they bumped up my rate. So he works harder. Uh-oh, here they come again. Wait a minute, bump it up again, bump it up again. At one point, rates were as high as 90%. Can you imagine working hard and the government taking 9 out of $10 that you make? That was pre-Reagan. Anyhow, let's continue with this.
The fairness,
I want to get to the
what rational
Bitcoin.
person? How do you reasonably admire birthright as a principle? Like it has some sort of like this is something we should, iconize.
How is it a birthright? What are we talking about here? We're talking about people wanting freedom as opposed to being told what to do. All right? It's uh, and freedom to do as you wish as long as you're not hurting anyone else. And the truth is, this is a fact. People who are conservative, libertarian are much more generous than the progressives. Much more generous with their own money. See, this is the thing. Progressives they're just so generous with other people's money because most of them either don't have any or they're just, they're only willing to give if they can force everybody else to do it, you know? Whereas libertarian goes and they see a need and they go over and they try to fill that need because you know what? They're just trying to do good. They're just focused on the need and they see the need and they're doing it. But the but the progressive, they have to make a political statement, like the rich guy that was trying to increase taxes because he said his taxes are too low. You know, well, why don't you just pay more? There is no law that says you can't give all your money to the federal government. Really, it's just that that as soon as you do, it will stop working. That money will become waste. It will become garbage. They will spend $8,000 on a toilet lid for a submarine.
Make permanent in somewhere that we should say this is a cornerstone of our fairness principle is birthright. I mean, it's
It's not a
preposterous. It
birthright,
is
dude.
the most ignorant, the
People
crudest
just want to be free.
of perspectives.
Let's get to the
And
money thing. Come on.
we always all fail.
All right.
So let's hear some of the crap.
All right.
propaganda crap. So here's some guy, some South American guy.
Okay. Let's get to
Good
that.
money drives out bad, bad money drives out good. Bitcoin is what money should always have been, but technologically was not able to become.
Right. So somehow money should be some fake commodity made in an electronic system that has no intrinsic value. Okay, a currency.
Isn't that what money is right now? The you pull $100 bill out of your wallet and take a good look at it. Now, what is it useful for? What would you use it for if people just quit accepting it? Pretty much nothing. I know it can be used like emery paper and stuff, but I mean, is there any real value in it? No, of course not. And what if the government, as much as we would like to guarantee all the money, what if the people said, we're not going to pay for all of the accounts that are now worthless? We're not going to replace your value because you lost it because the dollar crashed. So then what happens? This is the point. He's saying it should be something that can't be lost, but we'll see.
Um, that speculators can drive up or down depending on who wants to corner a market. Or
Can the dollar be speculated? Can speculators speculate with the dollar? Of course. Is there currency trading companies that just trade currencies, including the dollar? Of course. Does the value of the dollar go up and down on a regular basis? Of course. So if all those things are true, then what are you arguing? You're arguing that we are stuck with this currency because that's the one that you choose. It's got all the same issues that you're talking about right now.
who wants to take advantage of a particular time. And at any moment, some honest retailer could take in 1,000,000 bitcoins and then go to sell them, and they're worth a half the value. And so, what rational retailer would want to play with a currency subject to fluctuations like?
The half the value according to what? See, this is the problem, and this is the concern. You can't really go to Bitcoin until you can legalize transactions in Bitcoin. So this is the thing. At one point, you had to have cash, right? When you were younger, you might have remembered, they came out with the Visa, the charge it, then they had this slogan, just say charge it. And you could swipe your card over there and you didn't have to bring cash with you. We all remember that. At one point, that didn't exist. And yeah, it is just another form of transferring dollars, and dollars are still the commodity or the currency that is legal in America. But now the point is now we're almost completely moved away from the dollars, and now we use plastic, paper, almost no paper anymore, just plastic. You swipe the card. So we are used to changing the way we uh, buy and sell. So the point of Bitcoin is, and what they're trying to say is, right now, the Federal Reserve has a lock on currency. You cannot trade. I cannot go to a store and say I want to buy that sweater and buy it with anything else. I cannot use any other thing. It has to be a dollar or a credit card that uses the dollar, etc. It has to use the Federal Reserve note. So that's why we're trapped in this problem that he's going to talk about here in a second, about how you have to buy the Bitcoin with dollars, and then you have to sell the Bitcoin and get your dollars back. This has been a problem, and this is why the rest of the world has been forced to use the dollar to buy oil, the petrodollars they call it. And now that's been changing, and it's going to get worse. And it's little by little, it's going to destroy the value of the dollar because all those dollars that they've been holding out there are going to come flooding back into our market. They're going to sell them back. Of course, the Federal Reserve would just hold on to them. But if I could go down to the store with my Bitcoin and buy, uh, you know, my groceries with the Bitcoin. Now, of course, the Bitcoin's in a value, and but the the coin itself could have, because it's digital, it could have the ability to add and take away value, just like you do with a credit card, and it would have no connection to the dollar. If I could have any other kind of currency that people accept, because that's really what it is. It's what people believe was going to hold value. Let me take this little side road real quick. I was in South America in Argentina back in the 80s, and I saw the value of the peso drop by, it was 1,000% inflation a year, every year. So when you went to buy something for 100 pesos this year, next year the same item would be, uh, it was 100 pesos this year. Next year it's 1,000. The year after that it's 10,000. So you can imagine this could happen with the dollar. This is exactly what they did. All they were doing was getting rid of their debt by raising, getting rid of the value of their bills. So what the store owners would do, the law required them to deal only in pesos. They couldn't use dollars, but dollars were the most stable currency at the time. So what they would do is immediately after, at the end of the day, they would run down to the exchange place and buy dollars because their pesos were losing value so fast they didn't want to sleep on them. So, to them, the dollar was going up in value. And to us, at that time, the dollar either maintained its value very well or it was actually going up in value as compared to the rest of the world. Because, you might not notice it in our country, but you would notice it in buying items. Like if you went down and to the store, you'd notice, gee, that drill is a lot cheaper than it was a couple years ago. And that computer, wow, technology has gone down because almost everything that we buy now is made in China or Japan or some other country, usually a country that's cheaper in labor like China. So my main point is, look, if you're gonna argue that the Bitcoin isn't as good as the dollar, then you have to put them both on the same footing and say, you know, the United States has to legalize the use of Bitcoin so that I can go and buy my items with a Bitcoin. I don't have to transfer it. There should be no transfer. And eventually the dollar will be scaling based on what the Bitcoin is. The Bitcoin would hold its value more stably because the dollar is the one that's constantly crashing. It's constantly going down. And right now it's been going down majorly. And the only time that it really hurts us is during these crashes, these busts and booms. It hurts us. But that's the time that it happens. So, during good times, everything's wonderful. The dollar's flying high, everybody's happy, your value of your house is up, everything's good. Then when the crash comes down, the value of your house goes down, suddenly you're underwater. This all happens overnight. And who did this? Who had the power to make all this happen? The only people that regulate the value of the dollar, the Federal Reserve. All right.
That I wouldn't. If I was an honest businessman, why would I want to deal in a currency that I take it in one form and I sell it in another form, and I'm not getting an honest value
Like
out
I
of it?
said,
No,
we'd have to get rid of that.
it's just a gimmick. It's just a pyramid scheme.
The dollar is the pyramid scheme, and they've forced it on us. So now we are stuck with it. We can't have any other currencies. Why can't I use the silver dollar or a coin of some type? Why am I forced? What about, in the old days we ran low on dollars, what they would do is the the dollar store would sell coupons for the store. And that way people, they wouldn't sell it. They would use their own money, their own currency. They would create their own currency. That way people could come in and use that currency to buy items in their store. And that's the way it worked. And then when the dollar store needed to pay somebody, for goods or services, they could pay in those dollars as much as the other people were willing to take it because remember, in some cases they didn't need the items that the store had. But at least they knew they could trade in those dollars, those bills, to somebody else that did go to that store.
It doesn't have, like I said, because it was bastardized into do two things, be a commodity and be a transaction currency. It was ruined because it's good at neither.
It's it shouldn't be a commodity, and that's the truth about money. Money shouldn't be a commodity, but unfortunately it is, because when you make when something has intrinsic value, then it's a commodity. And if it doesn't have intrinsic value, it's a fiat currency. It's just a piece of paper, or just a value on a blink on a computer screen. If it's gold, I can get my coin. if if the economy goes to hell in a handbasket, at least I've got that gold as much as it's worth. Some people say it's worthless. Some people say it's worth what you can use it for. Some people like it for beauty, whatever. Gold has been one of the most stable and excellent holders of value. And in the past, that's what the kings used. That's what people used throughout history. Rich people would store their value in gold because it would hold the value the best. I mean, we can see, and I've said this before, the dollar's value crashes on purpose. They do it on purpose. They would like it to be about 4 or 5% inflation a year. They like that. They want to see our value go down, our what we have saved. They don't like it, us saving money. And then if you try to get interest rates that equal or are higher to that so you don't lose money, it's very difficult. I mean, go to a bank, go to get a CD that will give you a return that's equal to the inflation rate. It's not going to happen. But if you had Bitcoin and everybody likes the Bitcoin, and there's no reason for it to be going down in value, then we wouldn't be losing money. I could put Bitcoins anywhere I want. I'd be fine. And we would never have an issue of running low, because as the values come up, because more people are hoarding them, then more people would bring them out to use them. This is what happened with gold. When gold values go down, people quit mining gold. They quit mining bitcoins. But if you increase the value, then everybody's out there trying to get more. And when you get more, the value comes back down because there's more on the market. This is why gold has always worked so well, because it kind of brings itself even.
It's not value intrinsically. It's not wheat. It's not oil. It's not corn. It has no intrinsic value. So it's nothing as a commodity.
So we have no money that has intrinsic value that you're talking about.
And because it's a speculator's playground, it's ruined as a transaction
You're
currency.
talking about
the
the
last
dollar
thing you want
too.
people doing is speculating with your transaction currency.
That's what they do with the dollar.
It's the hoarding argument again. I mean, I don't want to have to keep going over this, but it isn't that complicated. There is only $1 trillion worth of actual money in circulation.
And that's just not true. The truth is there's about 1.25 trillion physical bills at any given time. And those bills are, you know, just because that's what is needed for cash to flow. There's only a little bit of there are very few people even use cash anymore. So how many bills there are in the economy is almost of no consequence, because most people, their check flows into their account invisibly and they spend it invisibly. All their bills are paid automatically. Uh, if you do have to make a payment that's not automatic, you go online and you push the pay button. And if you're absolutely in the 20th century, you have to write a check. But almost nobody takes cash down and pays their water bill. You know, it's only those people that can't get a connection with a bank, can't have any other connection. The way it is now, the federal government's made it illegal for Joe to create a piece of paper that says, I owe you uh, 100 tomatoes. And then I could keep that bill, I could put that in under my pillow and come back 20 years later and say, Bill, and Bill would give me 100 tomatoes. The government's currency doesn't do that for me, but they're making it illegal for me to do that with Bill because they want Bill to do what he's saying we're having to do with Bitcoin, and that is take his tomatoes and sell them to me for dollars, and then he's supposed to take those dollars and use them as a storage of value, which is a terrible storage of value because we know it's losing 5% every year, more than many people make on their money. So my argument would be for Bitcoin or for any currency that the people have faith in. Because the truth is, we all gamble. We all take chances. If you go into the stock market, you can lose all your money in 15 minutes. It happens all the time and it will continue to happen because the people that are in the know where everything's moving. They know how to get around. And the people that aren't in the know get torn up. So then what happens? Then the government or the people with their taxes come and bail out these people that come crashing down with food stamps and rent assistance, et cetera, et cetera. Well, my point is if the government never got involved in the money issue, or if the money that the government offers is just an option. Like if I can go, I can go and say I want dollars because I trust dollars, because I believe in my government. Then that's great. That's competition. And then, or I can say, you know what, I really don't trust my government right now. I think that they're spending way more than they're taking in, and any company that would spend 40% more than they take in every year can't live for long. So why would I be putting my money in that, right? I'd be buying Joe's tomato pads. I'd be doing whatever, I'd be buying stuff that I need. I'd be getting connections with all my suppliers and getting long-term contracts so that I have my food and all my stuff. I don't have to worry about price increases because I've already got my connection. If I need wheat, I got Bill, and Bill's a farmer. He's got all this wheat, and I am, I've got a connection with him. So when I spend, I can buy wheat from him in several ways. Maybe I'm a mechanic, and Bill's got to have a mechanic that does all of his tractors. So my contact with Bill and my contract is that I'll take care of his tractors. He makes sure that I have all the wheat I need. That's a fair deal. The problem is federal government says no, 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 because we can't tax that. We got to tax it so that we can spend money on wars and give money to people that didn't earn it. And we need to skew the economy. It's weird because these same progressives, these people who believe they're progressing actually are going backwards, at least for the average man, because society is much worse than it was 50 years ago for the average man. Anyone that wants to argue the opposite of that, I would love to, because my parents had it a lot better than I, and their parents had it even better than them. So yeah, there were periods of history that were good and bad, and I understand all that. But this is just obviously wrong. We are living in a society of the most wealth ever, and yet we have the biggest disparity. And as a libertarian, I say that the resolution is not to take it away from one group and give it to the other, but to make the opportunities for the both sides and to make a level playing field as much as possible. Like I said, you can't make one person smarter than the other. You can't make one person study more than the other. You can't force one guy to be more diligent or to be a better manager. You can't. So these are things that separate people, but that's good because we want the best to rise to the top, right? That's what you want. When you go to a doctor, you don't want the doctor that graduated at the bottom of his class, do you? No. And if we had, ratings, and you went to your doctor and you said, "Oh, he got a D minus," he's a doctor, but he's D minus. Would you go to him or would you go to the guy that's got the A plus? And and sure, the guy with the A plus might cost you more, but it's your health, it's your concern, it's your choice. Now, you want to save money, you go to the cheaper guy. this all makes common sense to me. This is, fair market. All right, let's cut this.
The rest of the paper is in the form of IOUs. Okay, that's all. They're IOUs.
That's what
They're
the
not
dollars are.
paper. They're not dollars.
If you notice, on every dollar it says note, right? Note. Now, if you look up the word note, it's an IOU. It's a guarantee to pay. Okay? So the dollar itself isn't payment. It's not even it's and you can't really take it and trade it in for anything. So it's a trick. They've forced you into this little trick and you actually believe it. So you're using this paper that's a note. It's a debt instrument. Look that up. Debt instrument.
The dollar is quite secure, and it is quite sensible for the dollar to lose value over time.
How do you figure the dollar is secure? It's lost almost all of its value in the last 100 years. How is that secure? Most people live to be close to 100 years old. So you're talking about a, a storage money. It's a currency that's supposed to hold value. That's the whole purpose of currencies, to hold value, so that I don't have to carry around 100 tomatoes. So that when I want to buy 100 tomatoes, I don't have to, carry 50 bricks over to his house so that I can get the 100 tomatoes. You see, that's why. So he could buy the bricks with the money, and I could buy the tomatoes with the money. So, I could sell bricks to all these people with money. They would bring the money, and then I could take that money and buy the stuff I need. That makes sense. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense is when you have a monopoly on the people that create the money, and then they regulate the value according to their own will, whim, and wishes. It's ridiculous.
Have a slight inflation built into it because you don't want people hoarding a transaction.
And like I've said before, you know, it's not a transaction currency. It is a maintainer of value. That's the main point of a currency. It's not a transaction. Transactions are just part of it. It's so that I can get 100 100 tomatoes with this bill that I got by selling 50 bricks. You see? I sell my bricks because I don't want to eat all those tomatoes right now. I want to have a tomato today and one tomorrow and one next week. You see? So I want that currency to maintain that value. And what you're saying is I have to spend it or it's going to go down. This is what happened in Argentina. If you had Argentine pesos at 1,000% inflation, listen, if you didn't spend it today, it wasn't going to be worth much tomorrow. 10% next year. One dime on the dollar next year. Every year after that. So, it doesn't make sense. And this is the way fiat currency works. The government has the decision power to decide whether it's worth half of its value tomorrow. They can do that. The dollar, you're talking about how stable the dollar is. Well, it's been historically stable. But right now, we've got China and Russia who are trying to separate themselves from the dollar. What's going to happen then? All these dollars are going to come flooding back. The Federal Reserve are going to have to buy them all up. That means you're in debt to the Federal Reserve because they're spending their money on your dollars to keep your value where it should be. Or if they don't, they'll just let the dollar crash and then you'll have a bunch of nothing. And most people are poor. They're like, who cares? I got no value in dollars anyway. Well, good. But remember, you're still working for 8 or 10 bucks an hour as a poor person, and the guy that's selling the milk ain't gonna sell the milk for $4 a gallon anymore. You know what I'm saying? Why would he want dollars that are crashing? Why would he want them? Certainly not. All right, let's go one more little spot here, and I'm done.
Currency. So you don't want when stuff gets a little dicey in the economy and there's a little bit of inflation, the last thing you want people to do is shove dollars into their mattress. I mean, you should be able to understand that.
But you don't understand the most important part of the equation. You just said that when the economy starts going down, there's inflation. Why is there inflation? It's got to do with the value of the currency. Why would if the economy's going bad, why would there be inflation? Think about it. You go back to the 20s, late 20s when we had the crash. What happened to the value of the dollar? Did it did you have to carry, a wheelbarrow full of dollars to get a loaf of bread? No. There weren't enough dollars to go around. So, people were freaking out, jumping out of buildings and stuff. And that was the first real Federal Reserve crash. And we've had busts and booms, and in every case you can tie it to our currency, our wonderful worldwide dollar that we use now so that we can continue wars all over the world and manipulate countries in the world. Well, that's how we do it. The problem is, eventually the world's going to catch on to the fact that we're just printing this money out of thin air, and we're saying we're not because the Federal Reserve, we got this middleman over here. So really, the Federal Reserve is turning the money into magic, magic money, not the U.S. government. The U.S. government just borrows it and gives the Federal Reserve these bonds. Then the Federal Reserve can sell the bonds or they can hold on to them or whatever they want to do. As if it's theirs, as if the Federal Reserve actually had the value originally, like they owned it. This private corporation owns our money and then they loan it back to us. So when we print it out and then when we need it, we have to go back to them and get it. And we're not just talking about printing. We're saying any money that's created anywhere in the United States, whether it's bills that you can actually hold or digits in your account that are passed from your job to your personal account, it's all the same thing. So when you're trying to separate the two, it's really you're just wasting your time. It's all fiat currency. There is nothing backing it. That's why silver was so good because look, if the government said, "All right, the dollars are no longer worth anything," but you had a bunch of silver dollars, you could melt the silver down. You had something. Silver's valuable. It always will be. I'd rather have a bunch of silver coins than I would a bunch of paper dollars. And I certainly would rather have the freedom to choose whether I want to take an IOU from Joe and use that as my currency, as my value holder. That's my choice. It should not be the federal government's, but they don't like it because they can't control it. And progressives, the main thing that they want to do is control people. When they talk about freedom, they talk about making things better, about protecting people's health, etc. It's all about control. Sure, they want to make you healthier. Sure. Here, come on in, come on over here. Have you been reading the newspaper about the trauma centers? I mean, you walk in a trauma center door without any treatment, it's $33,000. Boom. This is what we're talking about. Our whole system is screwed up because the government gets involved everywhere. And before the government got involved, this was not a problem. We had no health care issues until the 60s when the federal government decided to get their nose involved. And it's only gotten worse. And each year now it's a major issue, a crisis. So we go from crisis to crisis, and every single one of them, it either has to do with the Federal Reserve, where the savings and loan bailout, or the banking bailout, or all the other bailouts that we've had in just the last several years. This is all the housing market crash. All that has to do with the federal government getting their nose into it. So if you want to argue your point, Show me, show me where the federal government has done good, where they come in and they actually make things better. Like, for example, they went out and killed all the wolves. Remember that? And then the elk didn't get killed because it was a terrible thing to watch wolves killing an elk. But of course, the elk ate all the grass and everything died. Okay. Anyhow, good talking to you guys. Talk to you later.